Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 69, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today, John and I are catching up, discussing our approach to this upcoming hunting season, any new tactics we plan to use, and any new gear we plan to implement. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you, and happy 4th of July. I hope everyone is getting an opportunity to spend a little time with family, maybe a little barbecue, maybe slide a little bit of deer work in over the holiday weekend. I will be headed north. In fact, John and I will probably cover this and what we're doing over the next couple weeks. But as you're listening to this, I'll be in Cape Cod on a little family vacation, maybe do a little deep sea fishing, maybe hang out on the beach a little bit, a little relaxing time here before we get into the full swing, the full court press, as mine is fast approaching with all the work that I need to get done yet before the season starts. But John and I are catching up on what we have planned for this year. Some things we're going to try to maybe do a little differently, maybe some pieces of gear that we're going to try to use, or pieces of gear we've used in the past and that we might try to use a little differently. And that's really kind of the focus of today's conversation, just John and I catching up as we both kind of get geared up and geeked out for the season. So we won't belabor this up front too long here, but I do want to take a quick second to talk about our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. This podcast is brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you have ever used. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. And right now, when you visit wickedtreegear.com and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout, you will receive a 20% discount on your Wicked purchase. Also, as a reminder, every purchase that you make with Wicked, Tecumani, or Glacier coolers puts you in the running to win that kick-ass prize of a free hunt from Whitetail Heaven and a bunch of other cool prizes. So make sure you're headed to those websites and picking up some products now here during the off-season to get yourself tossed into the drawing for that killer hunt. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. The new Exodus Trek is a byproduct of all consumer voices who have been excited about what Exodus trail cameras have to offer, but just can't fit a $200 camera in their budget, and that's okay. A budget-friendly camera backed by the industry's leading warranty is now here. The Trek comes in at $145, and in fact, I think they are running a sale right now where you can pick these up for $99. So I would hop on that. This camera has the same proprietary shell design as the Lift series camera, same 5-year warranty, same kick-ass customer service, 0.7 second trigger speed, photo, video, time-lapse, all the things that you come to love about the Exodus cameras, all this one with a single line backlit LED display for simple use. Also, you get about 20,000 images on a set of lithium batteries, and if you'd like to learn more about Exodus trail cameras, check them out at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And if you like what you see, you can save yourself $20 and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout. We're also brought to you by Tecumani Seed. Everything's bigger and better in Texas, no matter if you're in the South, Midwest, or Northeast. Tecumani Seed has your food plot needs covered. Visit Tecumani.com and check out their product selector tool to help pick the right seeds for your food plot needs. Use promo code TRUTH at checkout and save 20%. And we are also brought to you by Glacier Coolers, simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com, promo code TRUTH, save 20%. Now let's get Johnny on the line. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, John and I haven't had a chance to catch up in a little while on the show, so we thought today we would do a little John and Clint catch up and also kind of dive into some of the things we have planned for this year, talk a little tactics for our 2018 upcoming season, maybe talk a little bit about velvet bucks, maybe talk a little bit about gear that we got in our bag for the hunting season, and a little bit of life. But before we start all that, man, how's it going?
It is going. Another hot day here in Iowa.
Yeah, is it temperature hot, or are you just bringing the heat?
No, it's temperature hot today. We got a little bit of rain, which was nice. We had been so hot and so windy. You take that heat and wind together, and man, it just dries everything out. But we got some rain, which was good. And then it followed up. We had a couple of days, it was like high in the upper 70s, like, low 80s. And so it was pleasant. But the last couple of days, it's popped back up into the 90s.
Nice. That's a far cry from where you were at last year, man. I know last year you were praying for some rain, but you've had a little bit this year, right? I mean, how are the beans doing? Okay this year, better than last year?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing better than what they did last year. This year I planted my beans a lot earlier than I did last year.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, capitalize on maybe getting them some early rain, get a little start,
right.
Get up out of the ground, so to speak. But it seems like a lot of the farmers, they planted even earlier than I did this year. So, everybody else's beans are looking really good, and I just haven't been getting the rain. So I can't fault anything other than, lack of moisture.
Right. Yeah, man, we've had a pile of it back here, man. Like it's probably been one of the wettest springs / early summers that I can remember in a long time. Unfortunately for me this year, it's like I'm doing mainly all fall plots. So none of mine are going into the ground until mid-August, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, what's going to happen. I'm already telling myself, I'm like, what's going to happen. You get all this rain now, you decide not to do any spring plots, and you're going to hit.
Be dry as a bone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we'll see how that kind of shakes out, man. I'm holding out hope though. I'm trying to be positive. I'm like, what? I'll get timely rain. I don't need a lot. I just need it to be timely. You know what I mean? Like just that first couple of days after I get it in the ground, just to get it started would be great. Or even like I went outside the other day and there's just so much condensation on the ground, just like the humidity level in the air, like in the mornings and stuff like that. That even that right now is just like, if I get that type of stuff in August, I'll be super, super stoked. But before we jump into too much deer hunting stuff, man, what's going on? Let's do a little life check-in, man. What's going on with you outside the deer world? Anything new and exciting?
Well, the wife and kids, they did a little bit of a summer vacation.
Nice.
They went down to go visit the in-laws and the outlaws. They went down to visit my folks and her folks and her sister and stuff. So they've been gone for like a week and a half. Been like a total bachelor.
Nice.
And which, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it sounds super cool. And then you're like, crap, man. Like, I got to take care of the dogs and these, like, the dishes, and there's like laundry and
Yep.
I got to, pay bills and go get the mail, and I need to go to the grocery store. And I'm like, where's my tag team partner here? You know what I mean?
You're like, I need to tag out real quick.
Yeah. It's not as the first night. I'm not going to lie. I might have been sitting there on the couch eating Cheetos,
right.
But after that, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Vacation's over.
Yeah.
This is like work.
So do you have to do, so this is what usually happens to me. It's like, I have to do a mass cleaning, like at the end, like right before like my family comes back. Cause I don't do anything.
Yeah.
While they're gone. It's just like every piece of, like every article of clothing I own is dirty. Every dish in the house is dirty. The sink is full, like the whole nine. And then it's like a mad rush to try to get everything put back together to make it look like I'm, a fully functioning adult. And not
Right.
a juvenile. The way it doesn't look like I'm
I
in
had
college.
I had the sink overflowing,
Nice.
dude. It was pathetic.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm out of spoons. I don't have any forks.
That's when you just go straight to.
I'm like,
That's
dang it.
when you just go straight to the chips. The chips as like the utensil. You know what I mean? It's like the chip dip
I know,
right
yeah.
in.
I'm like, what can I eat that doesn't, like, screw it? I'll just go get fast food somewhere. They'll give me a plastic
Right,
fork.
exactly. Well, it's funny because you do start to scrape the bottom of the barrel where you're like, what requires the least amount of preparation that I could eat tonight? Like that's what the criteria becomes. You know what I mean? Because at first it's like, my wife will like make stuff before she leaves. She's like, I made you this and I made you this, and and I'm like, cool. Like, so the first thought is, how long can I stretch that? You know what I mean? Like, can I eat just enough every day to where it's like, I'm not really ever full, but I'm not really ever hungry, but I can make this thing last like 3 days. You know what I mean?
Dude, I may have given myself food poisoning. I was reaching back to the depths of hell in the refrigerator, pulling out leftovers, and I'm like smelling them, and I'm like, I mean, if I microwave it long enough, like, it'll probably kill anything that was growing.
Right.
So
That
I'm out. I'm cleaned out. If I want to make anything, we're talking cereal or I got to cook something.
right, nice. Yeah.
Period.
That's awesome, man. I kind of fall on the in the same boat, man. It's the same drill for me. I usually look at it as is there have I had my penicillin this year? And is it okay to eat this thing based on that?
Whoa, now what kind of parties are you throwing when she leaves and goes out
Oh,
of
hey,
town?
easy. I can't give away all the dirt, man. Little at a time. But that's cool.
Well, and two things happened as well. Like, so when you're left to your own devices like that and left on your own with the dogs and all that stuff and the regular, just house chores and stuff, I realized, one, how much she really does help me out.
Yeah.
Two, how quiet it is in my house when the kids are gone. Actually, a third thing, I realized that I work entirely too much.
Yeah.
Because with as much as I work right now, I couldn't keep this up.
Right.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
So I have to move into like a retirement home or something and work from there.
I know, right? I'd move in just
Like where somebody else does it.
right. I would move in just for the sponge baths, maybe. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
Nice. That might be it.
Sponge bath, somebody else cooks for you.
Yeah.
Lights out, I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I could be institutionalized.
Oh man, I got a pretty funny story about that actually. At some point, I'll have to share with you. I don't know if today is a good time to share that story. I wasn't institutionalized, but a friend may have been, and I may have partially been the cause of that institutionalization. But
Now, if you were a real friend, you'd be in there with him.
well, I didn't know he went. So I guess now I have to kind of tell the story because we started down this road. So I was it was when I was in a band. And I was at the time actually at this time I had left the band and I went back to school, and so I was working at a friend of mine's bartending through the last couple years of school. And a buddy of mine who owned another bar who I used to work with, it was a venue that I used to work at. He was opening a new bar down the street, and so he was there during the day working and stuff like that. And he would come visit me, and he's kind of nutty, and he would come up and he would get a couple of drinks, and when he gets a couple of drinks, like he gets squirrely pretty quick. You know what I mean? He goes from like 0 to 60, right? And it's like, I'm fine. And then the next step is like his clothes are off and he's passed out at the bar naked. That's like a pretty usual occurrence. And so my strategy for when he would come in, I would look and be like, hell, man, he's going to come in and cause all kinds of problems, just kind of like raise some ruckus, and I don't want to deal with that tonight. So I would just start, feeding him drinks. And because I figured as sooner I get him to pass out, like the better off I'm going to be, right? And then I'll just take him home because his house is on the way home from work. So I'm doing that, and of course, like usual, he kind of goes from 0 to 60. He eventually decides he's going to leave, and I was like, all right, he's like, I'm just going to go down to the bar, and he's speaking in sentence fragments at this point. And he's like, I'm just going to walk down to the bar, I'm just going to pass out on one of the pool tables and stay there tonight, because he would do that a lot when he was working there late, and so he goes to leave, and I don't think anything of it. And, the next day I get a phone call from his wife saying, hey, and I'm not going to mention his name, but have you seen, Jim, I'll call him. Did you see Jim today or talk to him? I'm like, no, I haven't talked. I saw him last night. And she's like, well, I haven't seen him at all today, and he's not answering his phone. And I was like, and he would sometimes go off and, he might get on his motorcycle and go somewhere in the morning and be gone for 2 days and no one see him. That was not out of the ordinary. And so the next day, she calls again. It's like, it's been 2 days and I haven't seen him. And this was on like a Thursday. He was at the bar. So it was Friday she called me, and then Saturday she called me, and I was like, I hadn't seen him. And then Sunday rolled around, and then a friend of mine called me and was like, hey, no one's seen Jim in like 3 days, and like we're not sure where he's at. He's not answering his phone, and getting kind of concerned or whatever. So Monday morning, whatever time, like he comes out, and it ends up like going home and seeing his wife or whatever. But in the meantime, before that happened, my buddy, like Sunday night, before his wife saw him on Monday morning, comes up to the bar to visit me and says, hey, he's like, everyone's been looking for Jim. And I was like, yeah. He's like, listen to this. And so he gives me his phone and hits this voicemail for me to listen to this voicemail. And I'm listening to it, and it's like the weirdest thing. It's like someone asking someone a lot of questions, and then someone who's apparently really drunk answering them. And I'm trying to figure out what it is. And here what happened was he left the bar, walked outside. A cop saw him, and he was all dirty from working at his bar. You know what I mean? Like from doing construction stuff. And so they thought he was like a vagrant. And so they stopped him because he was all stumbling and stuff. And they questioned him, and they asked him what his name was, and he told him he was Jesus Christ, and like all this, like yeah. And so they think he's nutty, right? So they basically took him to the mental hospital and had him committed. And when he sat down at the mental hospital, he dialed our friend, and we got the entire like admission into the mental institution on voicemail, where the guy's asking him questions. He's like, "Are you married, divorced, or single?" And his answer was yes. And then he asked the guy, he asked him what his name was. He's like, I'm Elvis Presley, And so I ended up talking to my buddy when he got out, and he's like, it was kind of funny at first until like I started sobering up. Then the guy licking the TV was really starting to piss me off. So that was the institutionalization story, but that was kind of a regular occurrence. I would like to say it was the only time that happened, but that was probably the third time that something similar to that has happened with him whenever I was hanging out with him. So, hopefully one day you'll get to meet him, because I think the two of you together would be a lot of fun. We'll say.
Oh. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But moving on, man, you were talking about the dog, so I got big news. We are now again a dog family here at the Campbell residence. So got a pooch for my daughter, black lab. He's a year old. His name's Rocky. He's super cool. Listens real well. Doesn't go to the bathroom in the house, which is like key for me, and already like leash trained and obedience trained and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. The next thing is I want to try to figure out if he could be a hunting dog at all, because I'd like to take him. I'd like to do like maybe some duck hunting or goose hunting with him. Have you ever worked with hunting dogs in the past?
A little bit, not a lot. A lot of canines,
right.
A lot of German Shepherds and Malinois and stuff like that. But haven't been around a lot of hunting dogs. One time I was around a German Shorthair and was absolutely blown away. I've always been impressed with Shepherds, but seeing the German Shorthairs, come on point. We were doing some pheasant hunting. It's just amazing. It's amazing to see those dogs work like that, in their element,
Yeah. Watching it. I mean, there's not a whole lot cooler than watching a working dog work that knows what it's doing. You know what I mean? I've done a little bit of rabbit hunting with hunting dogs in the past. But nothing too crazy. I think probably just a handful of times, maybe 3 or 4 times, a couple times growing up. Then I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago was the most recent time that I did it. But I would like to see if he's capable of doing it. Maybe we'll have to have someone come on who does that type of like, waterfowl training or something like that to do a show on that, just so I can get some tips, if nothing else, on how to teach him. Cause it seems like he fetches well and stuff like that. And he listens well in that regard. Like I throw something, he comes and gets it. I can put him on a stay and throw something. He won't run until I tell him to go get it. So like he's got nerves. Like he doesn't have to run immediately. Like he can wait for his command. But I just don't know enough about trying to, teach him the finer points of it. I guess the first thing would be maybe shoot a gun with him nearby to see if that spooks him or not. Because if that doesn't work, then I'd say his hunting career might be short-lived. But
yeah, I think that's is the dog going to be gun shy or whatever? And I'm sure there's ways to break them of that, or I don't know, maybe there's not. I shouldn't say that. I'm not a dog trainer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we would be. I wouldn't take any dog training advice from either. Now, I did used to, one of the many jobs that I've had, I used to train dogs, but it was all obedience training. And I started working with the trainers at this place and started working with one dog that was being attack trained for the Philadelphia Police Force. And that was cool. That was right before I left. And so, I was learning how to do the antagonizing or whatever to kind of see if the dog has the nerve and that kind of stuff. And then right before I left, I was in a bite suit just to kind of experience like the power of the dog and stuff like that, to understand like just how powerful they are and that kind of perspective. And it was cool. But man, I mean, there's nothing more frightening than willingly standing there getting ready to let a dog attack you. You know what I mean? Like that's not a comforting feeling at all, even if it is work and somewhat controlled. But
So back when I was a rookie, one of the canine handlers, he's like, "All right, Rook, you gotta get bit. You gotta earn your stripes or whatever." And I'm like, "What?" So we found an abandoned warehouse that was open, and he's like, "All right, take off running through there, and go find a closet or a bathroom or something like that, and go barricade yourself in there." And of course, they gave me a bite sleeve, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, crap, like this is going to be fun. And once I got in there and I got in this bathroom stall and closed the door and had the sleeve on, I started thinking, wait a second, like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, I'm about to let this 120-pound German Shepherd, like, come gnaw on me, And I thought, well, what if he doesn't go for the arm, the bite arm, and he goes for my leg or something like that.
Or what if
I'm like, this is going to end so badly.
What if,
and I've never been like probably more scared when you start hearing like the dog's like his paws and his claws like hitting the ground as he's getting closer. And man, he came busting in there and just drilled me.
Yeah, man,
unbelievable,
dude. At least it would have been really bad. I don't remember what movie that was that they taught the dog to sick balls. What movie was it? You're the movie buff. What movie was that?
Oh, yeah. Chopper, Sick Balls, Stand By Me.
Chopper, Sick Balls. That's the best.
Yeah, it was a movie that had River Phoenix and a young Corey Feldman. And
yeah, had all the 80s.
Chopper, Sick Balls.
Chopper, Sick Balls. So at least it wasn't Chopper, man. At least you had that going for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But other than that, man, I'm getting ready to do a little vacation next week, I think, over the 4th of July. I think the family and I are going to get out of town, do Cape Cod. We're going to head north, do a little whale watching. I think we're going to get on a boat and go out and do some fishing and maybe catch some lobsters and see if we can't find someone, in that local area to fix them up for us when we get off the boat and stuff like that. And other than that, man, I think probably just hang out on the beach a little bit and relax, man. That's my 4th of July plan. Then when I get back from that, man, that's when I really kind of have to hit the property stuff heavy and start to get ready. You got any big plans for the 4th? I know your family's out now, but you doing anything over the holiday?
Let's see. I will still. Let's see. I will be. Yeah, I'll be in town still.
Yeah.
I won't be out of town. I'm getting ready to go to that ICAST show down in Orlando, but that's not till maybe the 7th or 8th or something like that. So 4th of July last year, we went and sought out some fireworks, and the kids enjoyed that, and I like taking pictures of the fireworks and stuff like that, but that's all. We're not going anywhere.
Nice.
We're going to stick around here.
That's nice, man.
Do the old hot dogs and s'mores, maybe.
Yeah, I do like the staycation. But you're taking another trip soon, man, aren't you? You're headed to Montana, right? For the TAC.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the TAC shoot again this year in Big Sky. It's the only TAC shoot that I've ever been to, but this will be the 3rd year in a row going there. And I know that there's the PA one and the Texas one and the Michigan one and South Dakota and Utah. I know that they're all awesome. So if anybody gets a chance, definitely go check one of those out in your area. Even if it's not in your area, it's worth traveling. But the Big Sky one's the last one of the tour, and it seems to be a little laid back because everybody knows it's the last one, and it's just a cool time, man. It's cool to see a bunch of those guys out there that sometimes I don't get to see very often. Maybe I see them at trade show season or something, but
right.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. So that's pretty much my vacation. And then after that, get back home towards the end of July, and then it's going to be pretty much Chopper, Sick Balls. Through at least the first half of August. I'll be scrambling and hanging stands and starting to make some final preparations for September 1. September 1, I'll be down in Kentucky.
Nice, yeah. So with that, man, let's go ahead and do the hard. That was a good segue there to kind of start talking about some deer related info. We got chopper sick balls, institutionalizing our friends, and all that kind of good stuff out of the way. I know that you and we talked the other night just quickly on the phone. We're catching up. One of the rare times that we talk on the phone, and as would hold true, you were driving, because one of us has to be driving in order for the other to have a phone call, have a phone conversation. I think that's like the prerequisite for us. But we started talking a little bit about the upcoming season, like we always do, and we started kind of touching on some of the things that we're going to do different this year, and kind of now that we've had enough time away from the season, right? Because I know we kind of talk right after the season where we reflect a little bit on some of the things that worked, didn't work, and stuff like that, and that's always kind of good because it's always kind of fresh. But I think it's almost foolish at that time to start really kind of laying your plans for the next season. Like, I think it's good to start thinking about it, but I think you really need like a little bit more time to have like a reflection period to kind of really start to put in place like some really kind of understand what you want to change and how you're going to change it, and like the details of that, right? And that was what we were talking about. That was what we were talking about the other night. So I kind of want to start with you, and I want to get a sense of basically where we started our conversation the other night, like some of the things from this past season that you're going to kind of switch up for this year, and some of the bigger changes you're making.
So, moving out here to Iowa, it was, it's totally different ground. Even if you're not moving states, if you're just going to a new hunting property, it takes a little bit of time to learn it. And, I know that we should all read topos and whatnot, but just because a topo looks like it's a money spot doesn't mean it's a money spot. I mean, I think we've covered that in our hunting knowledge and stuff over the years. But so I was super, super aggressive. And I've been known to be an aggressive hunter anyways. I'll roll the dice sometimes. So that being said, I was even more aggressive when I came here, checking trail cameras a lot, moving around a lot, just trying to cover as much ground as I possibly could. And I think ultimately I kind of screwed myself a little bit. So what I've done is I'm not negating having, doing your due diligence and doing your work, because I've had seasons where I didn't do that and it bit me in the ass. Right. So I'm not negating anything that I'm doing less. I'm just really trying to be smarter about it. If it means sometimes if you've got a good win and you want to sit that tree stand 3 days in a row, sit it 3 days in a row. Yeah. If you can get away with it. Click on the ozonics, see if you can get away with a marginal win and make it a better win or a decent win for yourself. But I just think that, in years past, man, I've put entirely too much pressure and just literally I was running myself ragged.
Yeah.
Hunt every chance you get. I've been in those situations where it's like, well, I could hunt today, but I've got a really, really good wind, and man, that's such a gamble. Cause I don't know exactly what my work schedule is going to be. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what the kid's schedule is going to be all the time. And who knows, it might rain that day or something else. So I still think that there's days that you need to push it and you need to go for it. So I'm not saying throw all the tactics out the window, but I definitely think this year I'm going to try a little bit different approach and maybe not be as crazy aggressive when it comes to the prep season.
Right. Yeah.
And then just hunt when I can. If I'm in a good spot, you know what? Maybe I'll sit there 3 or 4 days. Eventually something will come through. If it doesn't, all right, we'll bounce. We'll go someplace else.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we were just kind of kicking around the other night was just, the way we categorized it was, be less technical. You know what I mean? Like there's all this thing. It's one of those things where, some of the best advice I ever got as a musician, and I think it really applies here, was, because I never took any, and I'm going to dive into some music stuff here, which people might think it's not totally related, but it is, because it's, for me, it's like I think of things in analogies. And one of the things that this dude told me was, because I was really wanting to take lessons and like understand theory, because I never took lessons, and I felt like I was lacking something because I didn't understand like music theory, and I couldn't read music and stuff like that. And I thought if I could do that, then I could get to that next level, right? And the best advice he ever gave me was, he was like, look, he's like, if that's what you want to do, he's like, take all the theory you want, learn how to read music, understand the theory behind it. Like, yes. He's like, and then do that, and then he's like, and then forget it all. You know what I mean? He used some other words because he was an old hippie. He was like, do a bunch of hallucinogenics and then like lose your mind and forget every bit of it. He was like, and then you'll have it in your back pocket whenever you need to make decisions, and you're having to make decisions with very little information or very minimal information of the music you're about to play. You can still execute it, right? So for me, hunting's kind of the same way, where he was like, where it's like, I have all this stuff that I've learned, right? And when we learn it, we think that we have to start to apply every piece of it. And then we just start to overanalyze, and we start applying too much, and we start trying to make things fit into the puzzle, even though there's not a place for that specific puzzle piece. And so that is something that I'm guilty of. And so now I'm trying to just go, you know what? I kind of know a bunch of this stuff, and what I need to do now is just kind of go and hunt. And as things come, like read the sign as I see it, make a decision as I see it, rely on the things that I know, like to come to me in real time, almost so I can make the decision. It's not saying I'm not laying a plan, but I'm going to be very flexible in that plan and not be kind of like a prisoner of the plan that I create during the off season, if that makes sense. Right?
Totally. I mean, you got to be fluid. I mean, I love strategizing. And when I say I like making a plan, I'm like, okay, I want to do this food plot this year, and I want to turn this ground into food plot, or I want to clear this off, or I want to increase habitat, maybe fall some trees or hinge cutting. Those are general guidelines,
Right.
But when it gets into the season, that's kind of what I was getting at, as far as like, I might sit there for a few days, and if it's not happening, then I'll move, and I'm going to be fluid, but not like twitchy fluid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I got to run and gun every single set, and and like you mentioned, and we talked about the other night, you've got all these different tactics. You cannot apply every one of those tactics
Right.
and all that technology at one time. Yeah. Like, if you truly believe in every bit of those tactics and you're going to follow every one of them to the letter, well, hell, you'll never hunt.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can't go into that spot. I'll blow this out. My approach isn't good there. My wind's not good here. I don't have my ozonics here. Man, I don't have a food plot there. You know what? I need to be on a field edge. The moon guy says I need to be in a bedding area. You apply all that crap, and it just, you got to find the tactics that work for you. Or I still do believe in following the high probability things. Right. Barometric pressure. There's a couple of things that I do stick to. And those are part of just my core, hunting tactics. But, a real short story, in 2014, there was a buck that I was trying to kill there in Kentucky, and I was technical, man. I had him patterned, everything, all my tactics were spot on, and I kept seeing the deer, but he was out of bow range. And I'm like, what the heck is going on, And I kept moving, and I kept moving. Well, all I was doing was just bumping him and bumping him and bumping him. And my buddy Mike Riddle that I used to hunt with in Kentucky, he's like, you know what? We just need to go to the top of the ridge. And I'm like, whatever. At this point, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's meant to be. It's meant to be. We went to the top of the ridge, and we killed him first hit. And it just, I was so locked into my tactics and all the technology and everything that I was trying to do. It's like I was trying. It almost felt like I got myself in a position where I was trying to prove myself right.
Yes.
And I was screwing myself.
It's funny that you say that, because I was talking with Zach Fehrenbaugh from the Hunting Public, and we talked about this, where, guys want to be right so bad, guys and girls, whatever, want to be right so bad that they'll ignore blatant sign that's telling you that you're either in the wrong spot or that you should be in another spot, just on the off chance that they might be right, so they can say that I had this figured out. You know what I mean? Like, It's, we will cut our nose off to spite our face, essentially, as hunters, because we want to believe that all the work that we put in, and that we want to understand these deer, as best as we can, and that we get them, that we can get, kind of inside their brain to a degree. But, I think, a guy that I read his books and, look up to as far as a guy who knows deers, Steve Bartilla, and I've had an opportunity to talk to him, and he respects the animal immensely, but he will be the first one to tell you, he's like, we give these animals way more credit than they probably do in terms of how smart they are. He's like, they're not capable of reasoning. They don't have a reason other than it's going to be safe in a place when they take off to run. He was like, there's no like reasoning skills beyond like cover, food, and procreation. Like that's real, and that's it. He's like, so, oftentimes we as hunters kind of try to make more out of what they're doing than it really is. It's like, I mean, I think we should always ask the question why, but I don't think the answer is super deep necessarily, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's pretty high level. Like they're not, it's going to be, well, why did that buck come out on this trail versus the other one? Well, maybe you've even said this in the past where it's like, well, maybe a coyote walked down that 30 minutes ago. You know what I mean? And bumped him off like where he's normally going. It's not like there's not like a big mystery about it. There was something that happened that made him turn course, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he decided to take a walkabout.
GPS trackers, cute.
Good.
What, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it wasn't like he just decided to take a walkabout. Like he just got up and was like, I think I'll take a different route today. Just go over and see Greg the deer and see how he's doing. It's like, no, he's like, there was a reason why he made that move, whatever it is. You don't need to necessarily know what it is. You just need to know that there was an aversion there.
Well, I think in QDMA, every time they release any of those GPS, the tracking, over the map overlays and stuff like that, and you get to see how much those deer travel during the day. And let's say a deer travels 2 miles or something, pedometer miles, and I'm like, so you mean to tell me that sometime in the course of that 2 miles, something didn't spook him,
right?
Something didn't put him on high alert. Did he need 5 alerts that day to maintain that same schedule that he'll show up in that food plot at 6 p.m.? But what if the farmer fired up a tractor, or what if he didn't want to cross the road, at that time or whatever? Okay, so now he makes it into the food plot at 8 p.m. and it's whenever you were walking out. And when you were walking out, you busted him and blew him out of there, and you'll never see him again. I mean, you can really beat yourself up on some of these travel routes and travel patterns. And again, that's why I say you go to the high percentage areas and then just hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, I think, going back to something that you said earlier, when you said you're going to hunt a little less aggressive, you're talking about just, aggressively pursuing, a multitude of tactics per se, you know what I mean?
Correct.
And for me, I'll say, I'll use the word aggressive here, but a little bit differently than you did, which is I'm going to hunt more aggressively. And what I mean by that is I'm going to not be so particular about, the conditions necessarily matching up with exactly what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? I've done that in the past where, I was fortunate last year that I tagged out early in Pennsylvania, but there's, in years past, I would, avoid hunting, on certain weekend days because I just didn't get the right weather or whatever. And the truth of the matter is I'm a normal dude, works a normal job, and so weekends or when I really have time to hunt, other than the time that I take off around the end of October, beginning of November, when I take some, extended period of time off to hunt. And so if I do that, if I wait for those perfect weather conditions or the weather to just match up just so, it's like I'm losing a lot of days to hunt. And last year was one of the reasons why I wasn't able to kind of go after that deer that I was, kind of targeting and going after, because I was waiting for good weather days to land on the weekend. And it just, as I was looking at the forecast, it just wasn't going to happen. You know what I mean? But in hindsight, I probably just should have, put it all on black and let it ride and went after him. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You know what I mean? It's I'm going to bump him and not get a chance to kill him. It's someone killed him during, rifle season. So that's not going to happen as an opportunity for this year anyway. So you can't control all the odds. The best I can do is just go kind of work with what I have and make a good effort, And so with that, it's like, I'm going to definitely probably hunt, a little bit more risky winds this year. Going to use the Ozonics unit and kind of put it to the test and see if I can get away with a little bit more than I've gotten away with in the past. And with that kind of mentality, it's like I'm going into it knowing I'm going to take some risks. So if they don't pan out, I'm not going to be I'll be disappointed, but I'm not going to be mad about it because I'm making the decision now saying, you know what, I'm going to go risky and aggressive, and the results are going to be what the results are going to be. I might bump some deer. Yes. And I may blow an opportunity here and there, but I feel like if I do that, I'll give myself more opportunities, which then should hopefully equal more opportunities to see deer. Not going to be a complete bonehead and hunt a complete opposite wrong wind, but if it's an iffy wind, then I think I can get away with it. I'm going to try it.
Before we continue our conversation, let's talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. Hardcore deer hunters need hardcore tools. Do yourself a favor and check out Wicked Tree Gear, the toughest hand saws and pull saws on earth. You buy it once, you buy it for life, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Right now, if you use the promo code TRUTH, you'll save 20% on your next purchase with free ground shipping. So head over to wickedtreegear.com and get a saw that's tough enough to work as hard as you hunt.
So with that, being more aggressive, is there anything that you're going to throw into your bag of tricks this year that would be new outside of tactics? Is there any... Are there any new pieces of gear that you're going to use? Is there anything that you're looking forward to trying out this year that you've not used in the past that you're looking forward to check it out?
I made a switch over to the HHA sights. Very dedicated to the single pin, so it's going to be a matter of a lot of practice this summer and making sure that it's second nature to me, and the motor skills and the motor functions are there even in stress situations, to remember to adjust my pin. So that's on a technical side. That's one thing that I'm getting used to.
Are you, with your single pin, are you planning to make adjustments in the tree stand, or are you going to set it at a yardage, like 25 yards? And
yeah, so that's my plan this summer is I'm going to probably leave it at, say, 25 or 30 yards. I haven't decided which. And really learn my bow and exactly where that arrow is hitting at 20, where it's hitting at 25, where it's hitting at 35. So if I get in a situation where I've got it locked in at 25, I know that I just need to make a slight, aiming at a different point of the body or something. Right. Aim a little high, aim a little low, something like that. But, anything outside of that, generally speaking, you can move a little bit and, you have time to make that adjustment. But that's one tactic that I'm going to play with. I can't say that I'm going to stick to it until I get myself practiced in it. I'm very liable to, if he's at 20 yards and then he moves to 24, I'm liable to dial it to 24. Right. I'm just, that kind of worries me sometimes. Yeah. But take away any kind of margin of error, right? But so that's one gear change that I am making this year. I've implemented a couple of things with my food plot strategy that's a little bit differently this year. Of course, Mother Nature is going to hold all the cards in that. One of my leases, I didn't have any food plots on it whatsoever last year. So there's food plots on it now. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But I did implement an off-season feeding program this year. Just trying to encourage more summer deer. And that kind of goes hand in hand with my food plots. Right. Just try to hold more deer for 12 months, know?
Yeah.
So those are, I guess that's my three. That's my big three. Food plots on a lease, feeding schedule, off season feeding, and a sight change on my bow.
Yeah, I switched to a single pin this year too, and I have mine set at 25, and it's just, I shoot just about every day with it, and I'm pretty comfortable with it now. Like I'm good out to about 37 yards with it. I've kind of fallen the same camp as you, where I can't make any promises that if I have a deer kind of poking around at, 32 yards or 28 yards or something like that, if I have time, I won't make the adjustment real quick. You know what I mean? But right now, it's like I kind of have it figured out, on my 3D target where, if I'm at 37 yards, where do I have to hold that pin on him in order to get it to drop into the lungs? And it's what's really actually the more challenging part is that a lot of times when I'm shooting at a 3D target, or even when I'm hunting, it's like it's just I'm probably not any different than anyone else out there listening. Be curious, John, if you kind of do it this way too. But I always kind of aim for right behind the front shoulder, and I'm trying to like heart punch it almost every time. Like just I don't even think about it, just I naturally go there. And I'm trying to retrain myself to move my pin back a little further and concentrate more on double lung, more so than heart area. Just because I'm innately going to have a margin of error because I'm not holding a pin exactly where I want it to be. I'm having to gap. Is that something you're finding as you're starting to play around with it that you kind of do too?
Yeah, and I've never been one of those heart guys. I've always been a big double lung, maybe even get a little liver. I like center body. I like upping every chance I can to have an entry and an exit wound, and not just we penetrated both sides, but the arrow's still in him. I want the arrow through and through. I want 2 unobstructed holes. So, last year I had kind of changed my aiming points just a little bit, and it bit me. It bit me once. So, I think I'm going back to more of a double lung shot. Like I said, I want full, complete pass through, even if it's a quartered away shot. I want an entry and an exit hole unobstructed.
Right. Yeah, and going more for that. So that with that, you'd be going more that center mask, like that cavity center mask kind of shot to a degree.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what I'm having to kind of break myself of is needing to move more toward that, especially whenever you start gapping, because there's at 37 yards for me, it's like my pin is like floating on the backbone of the deer, essentially, of a 3D target. You know what I mean? So, when you try to start dropping them into the old pump station at that distance, and you're hovering like that, it's, you don't realize there's a lot to miss if you miss the heart forward. You know what I mean? Like if you miss that forward, you're out of the lungs now.
Yeah, you catch hard shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. So
hit or miss.
So that's the one thing.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and somebody to add to that, somebody had also I talked to the other day. We were discussing the differences, say like deer and antelope, and where an antelope is so much more used to drier situations, and they got to drink water. But it's, you shoot a deer and so many people find a deer near water. And it seems like it's kind of a triggered deal. A deer gets hurt and they're like, oh, God, got to go to water.
Right.
When you hit that big cavity and you cause extreme trauma and there's blood loss, the deer are definitely, drawn more to water. And they're not used to losing blood like that. To their bodies emptying out and things. I know somebody told me once before, they said, oh man, you just barely nick an antelope and they'll just tip over. No. 9 times out of 10 guys I've talked to, hunting antelope, they're like, no, the thing lived and ran forever before it died,
right.
So that's another reason that I like, taking those big cavity shots.
Yeah, so hopefully I can break myself of that, because that's the one thing that I'm, trying to continue to work on. But for me, for gear change this year, so I think I have two big ones. So, and I know that you've used this in the past, and we've talked about it a little bit, but this year will be the first year that I'm using ozone in the woods with an ozonics unit while I'm hunting. I've used ozone in the past, just in terms of washing my clothes and stuff like that. That I was a believer in that regard. But going to do that for the first time in the timber, which I'm excited about. It's one of the things that even when we had Cole on and we were talking about it, he'd be the first to say, look, there's nothing that's foolproof. You're never going to fool them 100% of the deer 100% of the time. It's just not the reality of it. And that's not necessarily what I'm looking to do with it. What I'm looking to do with it is just by myself. And when I say that I want to hunt more aggressively and hunt some winds that are maybe slightly wrong for me, or teetering on the edge of stupid, can that unit buy me 10 yards, 15 yards, whatever it is, to try to get the shot to be able to hunt that wind that I typically wouldn't hunt. So that's one thing that I'm adding, and I'm really looking forward to using. The other thing is something that's just kind of been new within probably the last 2 weeks, because I know, just like a lot of folks out there listening, probably hunt like I do, a combination, just like John does, a combination of some public and some private, and and here and there. And it seems like the majority of my hunting when I do my trips is on public ground. Like I go to Ohio every year, and that's a public ground hunt, for 8-9 days, however long I get out there. And then, the family properties and stuff like that, which are, private, of course, and a little bit more controlled environment. And so some of those public land, jobbies it's a hike in, and I love using my Lone Wolf stand-in sticks or my climber, depending on what kind of area I'm into and if there's a known tree that I'm going to get into or whatever the case might be. And it's allowed me to hunt mobile, which has been great. But I still, last year when I was hunting with Chad, where we were hunting in Ohio, like the terrain was brutal and the hikes in weren't pleasant. And even with that lighter, mobile, Lone Wolf setup, it was still kind of a bitch to get in and out. And by the time you get in, you're all sweated up and, you're stinking already and shit like that, which isn't good for the hunt. And so I kind of started thinking, and I do this every year. I go through my pack and I dump it out, and I'm like, what are the things I can get rid of and not have to take to lighten my load? And somehow before the beginning of hunting season, everything that I decide to take out of it makes it back in. And so this year I was like, what are some other ways I can start to lighten my load? Is there a way that can lighten my stand situation and stuff like that? So this year I'm actually going to kind of jump into giving saddle hunting a try, because I'm interested in it for two reasons. One is just the lightweight nature of it. Like I can still take my Lone Wolf sticks in, like they're plenty light enough. I can throw the saddle in my bag and walk in and get up a tree pretty quickly. The saddle weighs 2.5 pounds maybe. They got some pretty clever ways to clip different gear to you. That way when you climb up the tree, you only go up once, But then the other thing is to, how many times have we been in a tree and not had a shot at a deer because we were on the wrong side of the tree, right? And the saddle kind of helps you overcome some of that because you can get around the entire tree. It's going to be a completely foreign concept for me because I've never used a saddle in my life. I'll have one, I think, here end of July, and I'll be spending some time in my yard, shooting the 3D target, trying to get used to like the different shot angles and stuff like that. But those are the two big things that I'm changing this year. And the saddle piece, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that might change how I hunt and change the type of opportunities I get. But I don't know, John, have you ever used a saddle or entertained that idea?
I have never used a saddle. I know some guys that have. It's a pretty cool deal. I am interested how come like people have gone away from it. If it was a safety thing, if it's just a fear of heights thing, you know what I mean? Like,
so in full
but I've heard some great stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think in full transparency, for me, my biggest hang up with it is going to be the fear of heights thing. I'm not scared of heights per se, but I definitely, the first couple climbs of the year when I crawl into my stand, especially that first one when you haven't done it in the dark in almost a year, you know what I mean? And you're climbing up in and you can't really see a whole lot of anything. It's like, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't just a little unnerving for me. You know what I mean? And it quickly kind of comes back, and then I'm okay. You know what I mean? But that whole idea of just being completely out and, no, like just this saddle holding me up. Like you can get a small platform with them, and that's what I kind of plan to use. I plan to use a small like Predator platform with a saddle instead of using the steps all the way around the tree, because I want something a little bit more solid that kind of mimics the idea of a tree stand. But that's about the size of what your tree stand seat is essentially. But that's probably one of my biggest hangups as far as is just kind of hanging out there free and not feeling like the traditional support that I'm used to of having a stand under my feet. I would say that they're pretty, I say that they're safe as just about anything, because I know this is really kind of how arborists like use to trim trees. Like it's it's kind of like almost like a rock climbing unit and arborist kind of unit, so I'll give you a full report once I get it and kind of let you know how it works out, and if I scare myself shitless hanging in a tree with that thing.
Yeah. Or after your first hunt, you want to buy some spurs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm not even going to use sticks after that. I'll just like get those old climbing spurs, get old timey from whenever they used to use the leather lineman's belt and the spurs that climb up the trees to cut them. Some guys do that, man. Some guys use those type of climbing like spurs on their boots or whatever they are to hunt out of a saddle, where they just climb up a tree in the saddle and they're good to go. Which I don't know that I could get to that, but I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm hoping that it gives me some more mobility to get in and out of places quicker and quieter. And, I don't know that it's going to be right for every hunt. It'll depend on how much I know about the area. And, but I think it will be helpful if I'm going to spots that I don't really have a tree picked out. I more have an area picked out, and I'm going to go in and kind of still hunt my way in and look for hot sign to set up on. I think then it could be really beneficial. But maybe we'll have to have someone on, like a John Eberhard or something like that to talk about saddle hunting, because I know he's a big advocate for saddle hunting and pretty much hunts 100% out of a saddle. So maybe get some tips from the expert. But
there you go.
Yes, sir. But I think, man,
you're gonna bring back the saddle hunting.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back, dude. I'm gonna bring that back, and you bring back the mullet. We'll do it at the same time. Mullet saddles. There we go. We just created a business, dude. Mullet saddles. Done. Nice.
Yep. There you go.
So one last thing to touch on, man, before we try to wrap this thing up is just a quick velvet check-in. You texted me a picture the other day, and I was sitting at work when I got it, which thanks for that, because I did no more work the rest of the day. I daydreamed about bucks and read deer information online and got no work done. But yeah, man, it looks like you have at least from that picture, man, it looks like you have at least one hammer hanging out.
Yeah. Really good looking deer. It's still a little early to tell, but that was actually on my personal property. And the very first year that I moved here, I didn't get any cameras out till probably end of May, 1st of June. And there was two deer that I got pictures of, and they both had forked G2s, and one had a forked G2 and a forked G3. The forked G2 and 3 buck, he was found dead in velvet on the side of the road, so probably hit by a car. The forked G2 buck, he was really cool looking, but he was really small, wasn't very big, and he vanished. So I'm going to go back and start looking at some old pictures of him. This could be him. And if it is him, this would put this deer at 5 this year, estimated, 4 or 5. He was either 2 or 3 when I got pictures of him in 16. So nonetheless, there could just be some forked tine genetics running around, or it could in fact be this same buck. So that's interesting. It's exciting.
Nice. Now, we did talk right before we started recording, where you made the comment to me that that you don't get too terribly excited about velvet bucks, and then you had a reason why, but you said you weren't going to tell me until we were on the podcast. So I'm curious what what that is with your non-excitement for velvet bucks.
So man, it just comes down to 2013, 2014, and 15. I set my sights on one buck that I was getting trail camera pictures of, and velvet pictures. Watched them all summer. I was able to harvest the deer in 13 and 14. In 15, I didn't. He vanished. I ended up shooting a different buck that showed up on trail camera, but I didn't have my heart set on him at that time. At the time, I was still thinking the original buck was going to come around. So in 16 and 17, I had my heart set on big velvet bucks that I was getting pictures of, and I wasn't able to kill those. One vanished completely. The other one was actually killed by a neighbor. I'm in a spot where I live. I don't get a lot of pictures of deer in velvet and then see them hardhorn and then see them late season. I either get them in the summer or I get them in the fall. So I get excited when I see velvet bucks, and you see the potential that's running around out there. I just don't get as tore up and, on those velvet bucks because, hey, I got pictures of them in June. It's a whole nother thing to get pictures of him in October and November.
Yeah, preach there, man. That's for sure.
So that's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
for me.
it's funny you say that because like I have two separate experiences. For like the one on the one farm, the bigger farm that Lucky was on last year, I will get usually 2 or 3, every year that come in that I see in velvet, and then they'll stick around. Now they'll be maybe more or less visible once they turn hardhorn. Just depends, but they don't typically ever completely vanish. There'll be a handful of them that kind of I see during the summer and I see through the fall on camera or live, right? Like Lucky was one. He was always there during the summer. He usually would show up about, late July, early August. Then you would see him through the middle of October. Then he would go nocturnal, and you really wouldn't see him in daylight until you got toward, late season, right around Christmas, and then he would start showing up again during daylight. Now, my dad's property, the new property, is different, where it's like last year, none of the nice deer that I had on camera in the fall showed their face once during the summer in velvet, right? There was one younger up-and-comer, 9-point that was a nice deer. He was in velvet, and I saw him, but like the hammer 8-point that I hope to see this year, he didn't show up until, he was hardhorn. It was probably middle of September, late September, the first time he showed up. The other, looked like it was a 4.5-year-old, maybe a 5-year-old for Pennsylvania, which would be crazy, just judging by body size. Deer was a tank, but he didn't show up until October. You know what I mean? So it's like the better, and then they disappear after gun season, and I don't see them at all. So it's really, and this is perfect because they're not on the property really at all, except during October and November, and then they disappear and come back the next fall. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this year. I've yet to go back to pull like real velvet cards. I did a pull a few weeks ago just because I was back and had to do some stuff around the property, and they were just popping at that point, so there wasn't really anything identifiable to know who's who and stuff like that and to get excited about. But here in the next 2 weeks or so, when I start going back to get food plot stuff ready, I'll pull those cards, and that's when I'll start to see if there's anything poking around at at the farm. If there's something nice down there, that will get me a little excited because I know there's a high likelihood it'll stick around or at least be visible at some point during the fall. At my dad's, if there's nothing on the property, when I pull the card, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about it because last year that was kind of the same thing. And the nice deer didn't show up until October or late September, early October. So that's my velvet check-in, man. With that, dude, I think I don't have any more updates. And I've been laying on this bed talking to you since my internet crapped out. I turned down the lighting just a little bit since I'm in the bedroom, laying on the bed, talking the sweet sounds of deer hunting. Got a little mood lighting. Make everyone feel weird before we get off here.
Yeah, really.
Awesome, man.
And on that note, I'm going to go do manly things right now.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today. We'd like to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. That will make sure that all the new podcasts or upcoming podcasts get delivered directly to your iPhone or your Android device. Also, if you're not yet following Truth from the Stand on Instagram and Facebook, be sure to do that. This will be a great way for you to get involved in a few giveaways that we'll be doing. There's one running right now with Trophy Ridge. So that post is up on Instagram, and all you need to do is follow the directions of that post. I think you have to like the post, comment on it, and tag 2 buddies, and you get into the drawing. We'll be kind of announcing the winner of that here after the 4th of July weekend, so you have the remainder of this week to get involved with that. And before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Tecumani Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, and Trophy Taker Rests. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
Broken letters, rationalize yourself in numbers, but I